Okay. We're ready to go whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, I'm ready to roll. So let's start at the top. Call to order. Could you do a roll call, please, Maria?
Sure. Miss Bright?
Present.
Miss Dickinson, she let me know she's not able to join in today. Miss Clement? Not present. Mr. Kapler?
Present.
Mr. Stevie?
Yep.
So we do have quorum, Mr. Chair.
Great. So it just takes 3 of us for a quorum. That's great.
Cool.
Number 2, we would like to review and approve of the May 21st legal action report and meeting minutes. Was that the last time the board got together, was May 21st?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Gotcha. We didn't do anything in June.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we would need is a motion and a second and a vote.
I'll make that motion that we accept the legal action report from May 21st, 2021, as is.
Thank you, Chris.
I will second the motion.
Great. Motion is seconded. Call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the meeting minutes are approved. Third item is a call to the audience. Is there an audience today? I think the only people attending are staff, DRB, or applicants. Okay, number 4 is our first case number DRB RNA 2113, office conversion to travelers accommodation, lodging and outdoor dining, Rio Nuevo. Can we get a summary or a report from the staff on this?
Sure, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. This is the Copper Tower in downtown, the tallest building in Tucson, and the applicant is proposing to convert the uses from office to hotel for the first 9 floors of the building. And that includes a new outdoor dining area on the southeast facade, on the ground floor, and also the modification of the building's west facade. Since proposed exterior modifications are part of the project, this requires review by the DRB. Neither the structure, neither the site are listed or eligible to be historic, or they're not designated as part of a national register, so they do not need to go through the PRS in this case. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. The applicant is available for their presentation.
Before we turn it over to the applicant, Maria, can you remind the DRB our purview in reviewing this case? Under what code or requirements are we considering the application?
Yes, this would be a Rio Nuevo area review. Is the same standards that the DRB has been reviewing, is sections 512.7 C for the building design standards, and also section 512.7 D for the site design standards for compliance with the RNA.
Great, thank you. Okay, we can turn it over to the applicant if you guys would like to present your project.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. My name is Carrie Sylvan. I'm with Lazarus and Sylvan, and I'm representing the applicant. You'll be happy to know that since I'm not an architect, I'm not doing the primary part of this, the presentation, because that's the detail you need. I just want to set the stage and introduce the folks who are here. Tyler Kent is with OpWest, which is the developer for this project. And Adam Kogan is the architect, and he'll be doing a majority of the presentation. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. We've been working on this project actually for a couple of years with both the city and Rio Nuevo. It's very exciting. Most of you are familiar with One South Church, which is the large copper and blue building downtown. And this is a repurpose of the bottom 9 floors for a hotel. Really exciting project. Interestingly, most of the work is obviously internal, but when you repurpose a building like this, there are a few things that are happening external. So as staff pointed out, the provisions for Rio Nuevo IID in the DRB are really geared towards you all reviewing a new building. And this is an existing building, which we're doing a little bit on the outside. So we did provide you an analysis of all of the sections of the Rio Nuevo design criteria that are within your purview, and related it to the work we're actually proposing. And what you will see is that most of it says it's not applicable because we're not making changes to the overall building. At the same time, we did address the criteria that applied. So we didn't want you to read that and think that we were suggesting we were above the criteria, because that is not what's going on. It's just an existing building. And so as we make these small modifications, there were only a few of the criteria that applied. But we did go ahead and do the shade study and a few other things that, again, even though we're not doing anything to necessarily modify that, we're demonstrating compliance with those criteria. With that, I think, Tyler, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything as the developer, and then Adam can run through the changes.
That sounds great. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I am Tyler Kent. I am the managing partner of OpWest Development, as well as the managing partner of the One South Church Hotel project. For background, we acquired 9 floors, approximately 88,000 square feet, just under that, of the building back in November. Our team has been working hard on the planning and design of what we're calling the revitalization of One South Church. The planned project will convert 9 floors to a 145 key upper upscale Marriott Tribute Hotel. Our expertise at OpWest, we're mixed use investment and mixed use investment development company. We focus on lifestyle and quite a bit of hospitality. Our vision here is to reposition the asset as one of the top hotels in the market. All of the office tenants have been relocated to the top floors. In regard to the exterior, it's really, in our opinion, a minimalist approach. We see the building as an iconic building, and really just want to add to it. Our goal is to create a proper hotel entry and proper hotel branding along Church Avenue for hotel guests and other hotel amenity patrons for that restaurant and bar on the ground floor. A lot of what you'll see from Nelson today is along Church Avenue in terms of what we're doing to that entry. There is, again, in our opinion, a very minimalist plan on what we're calling the Paseo, the pedestrian cut through between what's now the new Rendezvous residential project and the office, or the hotel and the office tower, and we'll go through that. But again, that is, we think, an improvement and overall revitalization, part of the overall revitalization plan. I'm not sure if there's any questions relating to the program or the development plan beyond that, but that, I think, is how I'd like to frame it. And I'll hand it off to Nelson. Carrie, if you think that was a sufficient intro. I'll hand it off to Adam Kogan, who is our design guru with the architectural firm Nelson Partners, who we've worked with for a long time, and we're very excited about the work they've done, and excited to present it to you today.
Good morning, everyone. Maria, is it all right if I share my screen?
Please do so.
All right. Can you see the PDF I have on the screen right now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So this is for the special districts application for the One South Church Hotel project. Just a quick overview. Like Tyler and Carrie mentioned, our scope is limited. It's only the facade improvements to the west building entrance and the new restaurant patio, which will include awnings on the east side of the building. So before I get into that, I'm going to skip over to the site plan or the overview aerial, just for a little context. It's the blue and copper building, as Maria and Carrie had mentioned. Very iconic building downtown, but it is an older building. Drawings are from '86, so it's almost a 40-year-old building. And as this area is revitalized, we're excited to be a part of that as well. On this plan, you can see the Rendezvous Urban Flats are directly to the east of our property. And there's a variety of uses around us as well. So this is the west facade. For reference, is an existing condition. Excuse me. The exterior facade is currently granite, a copper tinted and mirrored curtain wall system that's currently pretty reflective. These white metal fins that extend all the way up the building, and some brass accents are part of the existing design. There is a existing colonnade that provides shade along the west side as well. The south elevation, you can see this was taken during construction of the Rendezvous Urban Flats that's directly adjacent to us. So you can see this area a little better. The restaurant patio will be along this angled portion of the building, which is on the south or southeast side. We're looking to do just a patio and then some awnings as well in this portion. Here's some surrounding context I'm sure you're familiar with. In the bottom right of the screen is the Rendezvous Apartments, more of a modern kind of building. But then there's a variety of architectural styles in this area as well. You see the Fox Theater, which is directly across the street, as well as the park and the Health Alliance building, which is to the west or southwest of us. So for the design of this building, we're looking to keep the general approach, but bring it down to a more human scale. So we're looking at some black metal fins that are a takeoff of the white fins that are currently on the building. We're just bringing them closer together and bringing the scale down so that it's more pedestrian friendly. We're also looking at some natural accents. A dark wood veneer on a beam over the main entryway. We're looking at a white textured plaster behind the black metal fins for a kind of minimalist natural look, and the white will play off the existing fins as well. And then the threshold, which you'll see better when I flip to the rendering, is an antique mirrored finish. And then we're echoing the brass that's already on the building with some potential building signage that I know is permitted separately, but just showing that for reference here. And then our light fixtures will be that same finish as well. So here's the rendering that we put together for the west facade entrance. You can see these black metal fins. Proportionally, they echo the white fins. They're just scaled down a bit. And brought closer together, like I said, for more of a pedestrian connection. Here is the wood veneered beam that goes across the main entry for more of a natural feel. And you can see behind and in between the black metal fins, we have that white textured plaster for more of a classic look. And then here are two light fixtures that we're proposing. And I'll go through the Rio Nuevo design standards in a minute to address how we're addressing those and how they need to be glare resistant and shielded and all of those requirements. And then we have our antique mirrored finish to represent some of the identity of the hotel, but more in a non-flashy, more of in a modest kind of way that accents the existing design where you have the mirrored elements of the colonnade already there as well. So there's that. Here's a overview of the materials that we're looking at. We're looking at a darker wood, like a walnut veneer, for that beam that goes over the entryway at the threshold. The white textured plaster finish behind the black metal fins. Here's kind of an example of the fins. In our use, they would be a little wider than this, kind of to match the proportions of the white fins that are existing on the building. On the upper right, you see the antique mirrored finish, an example of that. That would be in that threshold piece that surrounds the entry. And then we have this black steel base that you can see, you'll flip back just at the bottom to protect the base right here. We're also looking at and are proposing some lighting behind the metal fins, just some minimalist diffuse lighting to kind of draw attention to the entry a little bit. And of course, that would follow all applicable design standards as well. I'll move over, before I go through all the design standards, move over to the east patio elevation, just to give you an overview. We're not doing a lot to this east patio, but it is visible obliquely through the right-of-way along the street, so we are presenting it. We're proposing some black awnings and a new exterior door, and because it is a restaurant patio, we're proposing a patio enclosure. So here is a rendering. We are maintaining a 5-foot minimum sidewalk between our new patio and the landscape area and plaza at the adjacent Rendezvous Urban Flats apartments. This shows the black awnings over the restaurant patio and a landscaped enclosure around it. More of a minimal design, but definitely one that activates the space and kind of engages with the pedestrian walkway and the urban flats that are next to us. So then I'm going to quickly flip to our shade study and then go into the design requirements that this addresses. So the shade study, this is an existing building and we're not adjusting the form at all. The colonnade is staying and our treatments to the west exterior entry are formally in line with what's already there. It's just basically a new cladding. So we're not adjusting the form of the building at all. You could see in this hatched area, the shade study being at June 21st at 2 p.m. The majority of the site is shaded. Our restaurant patio, during certain times, it gets benefits from being shaded with the awnings, but a large portion of the day, including at this time, June 21st at 2 p.m., the plaza and patio is shaded by our building, and then a lot of times it's shaded by the adjacent building. The only area that's not shaded at this point in time is the west walkway, the expanded west area. But like I mentioned, that is existing, and we're not planning any modifications in that area. But this does meet the standard of at least 50% of our perimeter being shaded at this time. I'd like to flip through the design standards just to go through how we're addressing each of those items with our design. Like Harry mentioned, some of these don't apply because this is an existing structure that we're making some minimal exterior modifications to. So some of the items about building heights and form don't apply. Building standards respecting the scale of the buildings around us. It's an existing building. And we're not changing the existing building scale or form. We are working within existing setbacks. We're not expanding into the front setback at all on the west side, and there is no building setback where we're putting our patio between the One South Church building and the Rendezvous Urban Flats. So no new construction is planned within the existing setback. Item number 3 that we're addressing is that construction shall provide scale defining architectural elements. We are providing awnings as are recommended in this item over the restaurant patio. And there are already a colonnade on the existing building that bring the pedestrian level. We're also showing that antique mirrored threshold as a pedestrian level detail. And that kind of brings the overall building scale down. So when you look at this entry, it is more defined, and it's a great first look at our hotel. We're not changing the existing windows. So all of the building windows are staying the same on the upper floors as well as on the first 2 levels. And that already occupies that minimum of 50% that they're asking for in the guidelines. Number 5 references the form of the facade, a single plane. It's an existing building, so that doesn't apply. Number 6 relates to what we're doing for the building and facade design. It recommends that we're looking for pedestrian scaled, down shielded lighting, and glare controlled exterior building and window lighting. The decorative light fixtures that you can see in our renderings are pedestrian scaled. They're not neon, they're not oversized, but they just bring a nice iconic feel to the design. They will be down shielded and glare controlled. They're not going to be exposed. They do have a shielding to them. The lighting that we're proposing, the kind of soft diffuse lighting behind some of the fins, is diffuse as well. You won't see the light fixtures at all. So that will be glare controlled. Number 7 addresses front doors. All front doors are, or all doors of this building are existing and are largely not being modified. This is not a historic building, so number 8 does not apply. Neither does 9, because that relates to form, and this is an existing building. There is an existing parking garage below grade that we're utilizing for both the office space and the hotel, and that is not being modified. It does have existing bicycle parking included in that. There is existing vegetation along the west facade of this building. There's existing palm trees. That's not being modified at all with this submittal. And there's the extra wide sidewalk. And we are providing additional vegetation along the east of the property where we're showing the patio in that patio enclosure. And that'll definitely engage that space and work well with the landscape design of the existing apartment complex. 12, talking about colors conforming to the overall color palette. I'll address that one of the things that we were looking at when we were designing this entry is that we didn't want to clash with the existing granite. It's a very iconic building and we respect that. So we were looking at something that, like Tyler mentioned, is more minimalist, more toned down, but also brings our identity forward. And kind of as this area is revitalized, we reflect that in the building as well. And I'll flip to the rendering in just a moment to talk about that a little more. But we're looking at that textured plaster, more of a white that's already kind of taken off the white fins of the building, more natural materials, a simple black for the fins, so that we don't take away from the building, the existing building at all. Going along with that, there's no idiosyncratic or expressive colors. That's one of the concerns in the design guidelines. Everything's fairly neutral, and it's all high quality to complement the existing building facade. Number 13 relates to new buildings, which doesn't apply to this proposal. Number 14, as Carrie mentioned, this is a change of use. The office tenants are going to be on the upper floors, floor 10 and above, and the hotel is floor 9 and below. This is a mixed-use building, so 24-hour street-level activity is going to be encouraged, even to a larger extent than it was previously with the office use, with addition of the restaurant that's part of the hotel that we're adding the patio for, and with the addition of the hotel itself. It does diversify this block and gives an opportunity for more activity. There's already a plaza associated with Rendezvous Urban Flats in the space on the east side of the property, the northeast side of the property, and this will help engage that plaza as well. All primary public entries are existing. We're not adjusting the location or makeup of any of those entries or the sidewalk as well. So this doesn't really apply. We're not adjusting vehicular circulation either. All streets around the building, all ramps down to the parking garage are all existing. We've addressed parking, existing parking below the building. We're not changing anything related to that. There is an existing plaza that was built as part of the development for the Rendezvous Urban Flats that's adjacent to our property. And I think that will definitely be enhanced by the restaurant use that we're adding and our patio as well. Neighborhood linkages are maintained. The main linkage is through our site. We're looking from the north end to the south end. And like I mentioned, we're maintaining a 5-foot minimum sidewalk adjacent to our restaurant patio, and then that expands as you go past that patio and then into the overall plaza space that's between the Rendezvous building and the One South Church building. So we are maintaining that street linkage as well. I've mentioned the shade study. Over 50%, more like 85% of the building is shaded at 2 p.m. on June 21st because we're not adjusting the building form and it already complies with this requirement. So that basically covers our going through the requirements. And then just for your reference, I'm going to flip back to here. One last thing I will mention. You can see, as I was mentioning, the colors, they're all fairly minimalist, which we want to approach. It's hard when you look at kind of using treatments that would complement the stone. We didn't want to go for a stone facade. We definitely wanted to respect what's there, which I think we did. So that is it on my end for this presentation, I believe, unless Carrie or Tyler, you wanted to add anything?
Nothing major. I would just add that the rendering really talks more to the facade, but there is probably more warming up that would happen here at the entry, guys. That would be more plants and planters, more FF&E, type of touches, and your typical hotel equipment that you would have at a hotel entry. So,
well, thank you, Adam and team. First, thank you for reading the criteria. That's a step in the right direction. And then the letter that you prepared with your thoughts on each of the criteria is very helpful to our DRB. So Rosemary and Chris, they went through the criteria that we're supposed to be thinking about during the presentation. And let's just talk by exception instead of going through each and every one, since Adam already did that. Are there some exceptional talking points that Rosemary, you or Chris, you would like to bring up with the project team?
Ironically, the talking point I have pertains more to Chris. I was just curious about the landscaping in the patio area, what type of landscaping that might be.
So I don't know that we've defined that quite yet. I think we anything we do, we want to be of the place. So I think that it would be something that I don't know if it would be native to the desert, but obviously want to thrive in the desert and would be synonymous with Sonora and desert, foliage, probably a a succulent, a yucca, a Hercules agave, stuff like that. Something that would warm it up and also feel Sonoran, if you will. But we haven't defined it, so I'm just rambling to give you kind of what our vision would be there.
And I'll add to that. Yeah, and
Go
I'll
ahead.
add to that and say that when we do develop that more, our approach is going to be, we don't want it to be completely separated from the landscaping that's already there. There's a ton of landscaping already right across at that wall, right across the sidewalk, basically, at the Rendezvous Urban Flats. And that is the same thing that Tyler mentioned, more of a natural kind of Tucson landscaping. So we'd be building off of that and complementing what's there.
Okay, that makes sense. I think architecturally, you made our job real easy. You went through all the points and you're not doing anything outlandish with, colors or materials. So I don't see anything that I object to.
Thanks, Rosemary. Chris?
I have probably two things. One's a follow-up from what Rosemary was talking about, but the first one I wanted to touch on was you kind of glazed over parking and vehicular access in your application. I noticed are there any changes to the loading zone, pull-off parking on the west facade along Church? And if there are, have those been passed through DOT and whatnot? That's my only concern.
Yeah, Chair and Member Chris, Member Steve, sorry, that's more respectful to use the last name. We've actually been working very closely with Department of Transportation and Mobility, Donovan Durbin and Diana Alarcon. We've had a number of calls. That's actually why we put the plan. There's a transportation plan in the application. It's an operations plan. They asked us to do that. So the parking garage is not changing in the sense where you enter, where you exit. That's going to remain as is. Over on the west side, we've worked very closely with them to utilize that southern existing curb cut that's in that area. And we're going to be utilizing that primarily for the pickup, drop off, valet, those kinds of operations. DTM is actually doing I don't know if they're calling it an upgrade or revisit to that segment of stone. So we're working very, very closely with them to make sure that's all coordinated, and we're doing that through the development package process, for which you all are a piece of that process in the recommendations related to the architecture and the other issues. So yeah, and part of the reason we included that operations plan for you, I apologize, I meant to mention it in my opening comments to let you know we're very much working in tandem with DTM on how that would operate. I don't know if you have specific questions, some of which we're still working through.
No, I just wanted to bring it to the official record that you guys had something like that going on, because in your summary of the points that we are going to cover, it was kind of like not applicable when we talked about parking and circulation and access. So I wanted to just bring that up because I saw it in your application when I looked at it the other day.
Thank you.
The other question was the palm trees out front or on the west. Are those DOT or city, or are those private? Like, do you guys, are those irrigated and maintained by the property, or are they irrigated and maintained by the city?
Tyler or Adam, do you know if those are on private property or if they're in the right of way? I'm not even sure.
I do not know.
I don't know either.
So you're asking, are the palm trees public or private? That's a personal question to each palm tree, Chris.
It actually leads to, it's a not necessarily a comment or a question, because even if it was in DOT property, you guys could still be irrigating that with your proper systems. It's more that if you're planning on adding any container planters, annuals, any like that flanking that entry, you're going to need to get irrigation water to that. So having those palm trees nearby, figuring out whose water that is makes that water accessible. Otherwise, you guys are going to be very challenged to get water over there. Those are going to be very expensive pots. So this is more from a landscape architect's perspective on if you want to add any color or anything out there, you probably track that down.
Good point, and we will. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment.
It seems that in the Rio Nuevo design criteria that we just went through, a lot of projects are challenged in the shade study. This being a taller building, I guess a high rise next to other taller buildings, its environment is shaded without any project level accommodation. Do we all agree with that, Chris and Rosemary? Okay. I think that the presentation did walk through all the points, and I do agree that most of them are not applicable for a renovation like this. So if there is no more discussion.
One other thing, Nathan.
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
I did not see in your application any, maybe it's just in your renderings or maybe I skipped by it, signage. How's the signage for a hospitality business like this going to function? Is it going to be mounted on top of your fins? Is it perpendicular to the facade? Wayfinding for people like that, that's going to impact your facade. I don't think it fits into our criteria. It's more of a curiosity of mine, I think. And you know, you get to meet sign code. You know, they're the last step of your DRB or your design review, really. So.
Yeah, it's fair, and we do have some placement there for wayfinding. Adam, do you want to talk through what the current scheme is on the wayfinding in terms of the blade signs and where they're placed on the building, and then whatever else we've envisioned so far?
I can, if you could just
Or do you want to? Yeah, show.
Bear with me for a second. I just have to pull up that image.
I'd say it's fairly minimalist, but it's sufficient, guys. It's sort of you know how we're approaching. We don't want to do too much, but you know I think that we've got placement at Congress and Church. I think there's placement at Broadway and Church, more for vehicular, and I guess some pedestrian as well. And then there's some interior placement near the Paseo for the restaurant, and obviously there's going to be something on those blades. But we have. Adam, why don't you take them through it?
That's correct. So I'll show you a rendering of the blade sign in just a moment, just so you can see on the site plan where we're considering putting signs. We know that we'll have to go through a city review and permit as well before we do that. We're looking signage at this corner right here, which is what the rendering shows at the corner of Broadway and Church. Potentially signage as well on the corners on the north end. So Church and Congress, and then the corner that's adjacent to the plaza. Let me show you a rendering of that blade sign. Sorry, just bear with me for a second, please. Here we go. So you can see here more of a subdued approach as well, more of a black and white approach. The final design still would need to be determined, but this is what we're looking at typically for a corner blade sign for this project.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. Stephen, Ms. Bright, when the sign application packet comes in, we do coordinate with staff that reviews signs. And if the zoning administrator determines that the proposed signage affects the architectural features of any of the facades of the building, then it would be going back to the DRB for review. But that won't be determined until they actually, you know, file for their sign application packet.
I was just curious. Sometimes I feel like a looky-loo at a like a real estate open house at these meetings. So kind of, so what are you guys going to do with this little thing?
No, but it's a good
do?
idea. You know, it's a good idea to start exploring and for the applicant and the DRB to understand what may come up next.
Right. I also know that the building already has a number of entitlements for signage in place. So, you know, I think we'll figure it out. So.
Great. Any other comments from the design review board, or can we get a motion? And Maria, if you could take the screen back and put the motion language on the screen for one of our members to read. Here we go. There's the motion right there.
I can take a stab at the motion. So the design review board has reviewed the applicant's project for compliance with Rio Nuevo area design criteria and recommends to the Planning and Development Services Director approval, finding the project in compliance with the building design standards set forth in UDC section 5127C 1 through 15 and 5127D. I don't believe we have any conditions.
Thank you, Rosemary. There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
This is Chris. I'll second that.
Very good. Motion is seconded. I'll call for a vote. All members in favor of this motion, say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
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 It's unanimous with the ayes and the motion passes. Thank you, DRB. Thank you, applicant. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your thoroughness on that application. It was nice to see you guys dot your I's and cross your T's, and good luck with this project. It's a long time coming that facade gets activated.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the review of the RNA shade requirements. And I'm going to let staff present this agenda item. It looks like a staff item.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We are requesting the DRB to help determine any potential changes to the UDC in terms of the RNA requirements for shading on the right-of-way. This is in response to a flags raised by Mr. Bill Mackey at one of your meetings when he presented the project for the conversion of the former print shop to single-family residence across from the cathedral. And I included there in the agenda specifically what he indicated. He also sent us an email indicating his not concern, but saying, you know, the numbers don't match, you know, the diagrams I have. So at that meeting of April 9, DRB member Dickinson offered to do some research, and just based on what she shared, which is included in the DRB website, she says that it doesn't seem like the current standards specified by the UDC are the correct ones. And so I included for you the email she provided, and then a graphic of her research. Additionally, staff engaged with some research, and just to let you know, we don't have all the fancy tools that professionals have, you know, in the field. So we just went to the website, and our intern Jacqueline Reynolds did the research, and unfortunately she's not here today. But this is what she was able to find out, and she cited the sources of information. So I talked to the zoning administrator, Rosalind Wells, about, you know, this section of the UDC, and she did confirm that the main objective is to provide shade to pedestrians on the right-of-way when the sun is the hottest, when, you know, the shadows casted by any nearby structure or vegetation, you know, is the shortest, right? They provide the least shade. So just based on that guideline from the zoning administrator, we engage on this research. So based on what we found out, the shadow length in Tucson, the shortest is on June 21st, and that's at 0.18 meters. The shortest shadow length also occurs at 12 p.m. And then when the sun is the highest, like right above your head in the sky, it's also in the month of June. Anyway, she provided Jacqueline providing some charts and this graphic. So, and this other graphic she found online. So that's all been provided to you. So at this point, we would like your feedback as the experts in the field for us to inform the zoning examiner, the zoning administrator, and decide if we do need to engage on a code amendment of the UDC. I asked the zoning administrator if this would be just like a minor scrivener's error kind of change, and she said no, this would actually require a code amendment on the UDC if indeed we think it's necessary to correct what's included in this requirement in the RNA. So we're asking basically for your advice.
I see. That's a good one. I'm going to have to thank Mackie next time I see him for putting this problem out. The spirit of it is the spirit of it is, here's the challenge: provide 50% shade on sidewalks and pathways in the most challenging position of the sun, right? Which is the summer solstice at noon. That's when it's hardest. That's the hardest time to create shade. And if you can create shade at that time at 50% of the sidewalks, then you're going to have greater than 50% year round. So the spirit of the code is fine. If we missed it by a degree or a couple minutes, it's fine. I don't know how hard it is to do an amendment to a code like this, but maybe well, I have an idea, but let me just open it up for others. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I don't know. It looks to me like there's only one number that we would be changing, and it's the 82 degrees. Is that correct? Is that the number that we are thinking is incorrect here?
And maybe the 2 p.m. as well. Didn't we see 12 o'clock?
Yeah, based on our research, but again, we don't have the tools that architects or landscape architects or contractors may have handy. Staff doesn't have access to those. So I just have what we found online and what Ms. Dickinson provided.
And so let's look at Ms. Dickinson's email again. What is she recommending?
She didn't recommend specific changes, but she's just saying that the 2 p.m. on June 21st is not correct.
Okay, now let's look at her image that she attached. So what is this telling us? The sun path diagram for 3213. That's Tucson. Okay. How do you read this?
So
June 21st, it says 72, or no, it says 12 o'clock. It says 12 o'clock.
mm-hmm.
At 12 o'clock, it's only at 79 degrees.
Right.
There's two errors in the code section. The time says 2 o'clock, and peak sun is actually at noon on that day, and the angle is off by a couple degrees. What I'm reading into this is what Bill was talking about was, if you're close, there's been a couple reviews over the last year that have been really close on the shade. 2 degrees of shade could have activated those sites. And if I was an applicant and I looked at this and he's been the first one to say these numbers don't match, because I don't know which one to follow. Is it the time one or is it the angle one? Which one's more important? And when you're in code, they're both equally important. You can't make wiggle rooms when you're talking code. That's why we have it, right? You can't say, well, I took the 82 because it was the better one for me. And then we could say, no, you needed to take the noon. That's the way a code reviewer would look at it. It needs to be fixed, and probably going through, I don't know if we need to, I don't know what leverage we have, but someone needs to fix that. If that's going to be part of a code, it needs to be correct.
So it's 2 p.m.
We're not going to. I'm not the expert. I'm not the expert on how to figure that thing out. There's people that are qualified to figure out what that needs to be. It just appears to me, obviously, that there's error somewhere in these two numbers.
Yeah, I agree. I think the error is in, the time not matching the angle. We're giving them some impossible constraint. 2 p.m., 67 degrees would work, but not 80 degrees. So I guess we have to decide, is it 12 p.m. or is it 2 p.m. when it's actually a little bit hotter in the afternoon? Is that why they came up with that time? Even though the sun is straight up at 12 o'clock or closer to it, I guess that would help to know why they came up with the 2 p.m. designation instead of noon.
Someone forgot to type the 1 in front of the 2.
Could be. It could be a typo.
I think it should be solar noon on the solar noon on the summer solstice, and that looks like noon. Well, that's when the sun is at zenith. And as long as they have 50% shade in that 2-hour window, job's done. They've done their duty.
Yeah, but Nate, that's the thing in the code. It doesn't define the 2-hour window. It defines a specific moment in time, and that moment in time doesn't jive with the angle. Like, I guess I want to make the recommendation that, Maria, yes, there's been a potential error identified in the city code. Someone at city needs to do the research, figure out the answer, amend to that code, and make sure that we have the proper requirements in order to make our judgments or our recommendations on this board. It's not our job to fix it. We happen to be the board that may have identified this error.
Yeah, we were just, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stevie, we were just asking for advice. What from your point of view, what do you think makes more
Since
sense?
it's public, we probably need to have 3 public meetings and convene another board, and
Why don't we do this?
take some mayor and council time and let them figure it out.
I think you can have a definition without providing numbers. If you can say they need to have 50% shade on the longest day of the year when the sun is at its highest point in the sky. It varies depending on where on this planet you're at. It varies in Tucson. So you can just, if you change it, you could just say on the longest day of the year and the midday sun is at the highest point in the sky, which is approximately June 21st at noon. You don't need to mention the angle. Why mention the angle?
The only problem is I think making it more ambiguous makes it even harder to demonstrate compliance. And so, if we're tasked with confirming compliance, I would want a standard to measure it against. But I think I agree with what Chris said. We've identified an error, and now the city should find a design professional skilled in solar analysis who does this all the time and can provide a correction.
So I like this idea that the code has to be specific. It cannot be general. So then why do we believe it's a mistake? It's arbitrary. Whatever target you're going to draw, why is it wrong?
But it has to be factually, it has to be correct.
Well,
we just
Correct.
saw in the data that at 2 p.m. on June 21st, the angle of the sun is not 82 degrees.
Well, you could just use. See, that's what I like. The references. The longest day of the year, when the sun is at its highest position in the sky, which is around noon, give us 50% shade. But if you guys might know better. I'm never going to worry about this again after this conversation. If you guys want to get the time of day and the angle in the sky, you know, it all goes out the window if there's a cloud on that day. That's how I would apply. Hey, there's a cloud, I got it.
No, this is useful actually, you know, because we're trying to gather as much information as we can from professionals. So it's good that the DRB is agreeing with us that this needs to be revisited.
Okay. What else is on our agenda, Maria?
Yeah, that was it. And in terms of announcements, just to let you know, you may see again coming back the building that you reviewed for the new Franhan and Metcalf law offices, catty corner from the Copper building where the former Visit Tucson was at La Placita. And the applicant, based on our zoning inspector's results of his inspection, the applicant didn't comply with all the design criteria that was approved through the RNA process. So their COO has been put on hold. So I got an email yesterday from the architect asking why is it on hold. So I let her know that it was built not per the approved RNA design package. So my guess is that they're going to come back to the DRB for modifications to the approved design package. And that's all I have in terms of what may be coming up in the future.
Great. Well, thanks for that announcement. And with that, we are officially adjourned at 8:30. Thank you for your time and attendance.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Have
Bye.
a great weekend.